All right, welcome back to the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast. Today we have a really special guest I've been trying to get on the show for a long time, Ben Askren. He's fighting Jake Paul April 17th on Triller. The big fight everyone's talking about, the boxing match. Jake Paul obviously needs no introduction. He's got a huge following, YouTuber. Ben Askren is the guy that stepped up and said he'll fight him. And it's going to be a very interesting fight. Ben Askren and Jake Paul are both very good promoters, and I've been wanting to get him on the show, so I think it's going to be a great conversation. Before we get into that, I want to say thank you so much for the support, guys. The comments, the feedback, the likes, the shares. Make sure and click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Click the bell for notifications, and you got to turn your notifications on. I was told to say that. Somehow, I guess if you click the bell, it doesn't necessarily mean you get notifications. You got to turn them on your phone, on YouTube. But that way you find out when we are releasing videos, and then you can actually watch them sooner. We release them 9 hours earlier on YouTube than we do the audio platforms. So you can actually go to YouTube and watch them faster and get the content faster. We will also be posting a very special feature video after this, so stay tuned. Turn your notifications on. It's going to be posted. I'm not sure exactly when, but very soon to the posting of this podcast. So anyway, without further ado, let's talk to Ben. All right, Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
I've been trying to get you on for a while. Have you noticed? I've reached out to you, and then I kind of taunted you a little bit on some of your posts, and I was like, I gotta get Ben on, and because you initially said yes, and we're gonna set it up, and then I didn't hear from you, so I was like, every time you made a post, I was like leaving a comment. I was like, I don't know, you were like in the backyard doing fun stuff. I
don't know what happened. I think it was something with Corona, and everything was like just slow during Corona, and so that was probably I'm gonna blame that.
Yeah, that's good. And everything happens for a reason. Obviously, you got like a big fight coming up now, so we actually have something decent to talk about.
Absolutely.
Your life is changing a bit. You were retired. First of all, How you doing? How's your injury? How's training? How's life?
Good. Rehab's been great. I mean, I was actually I just turned on Joe Rogan with the Undertaker.
Yeah.
And the Undertaker had the exact same surgery as me. And it was so funny listening to him talk about it, because I went through like the exact same emotions, the exact same things where, I woke up and like all my pain was gone, and I'm like, wait, my back doesn't hurt anymore. My hip, I knew my hip wasn't gonna hurt anymore, but my back doesn't hurt. That's weird, And then it's like you're back up walking within just a couple days, and you're like, wait, just had my hip redone. I shouldn't be walking, should I? But I'm like, I'm up, I'm good. And then the pain that your first thing is like, well, I'm on pain meds. That's probably why my pain's gone. But then it just like never comes back. And wow. Yeah. So, and then I didn't listen to the whole thing. So I was sitting in the steam room. And then at the end, he was just talking about how like your body mechanics are so off because you've been compensating for that injury. And I have all this like weird shit I do because I couldn't bend and move in certain ways. So like the way I get up or the way I walk or like a handful of things I do. And I'm just like, now I could do them normal, but my body is so muscle memoried into doing it like the old way. And every time I do it, I'm like, oh, why am I doing this like this?
Yeah. Have you had knee surgery before? Like, have you torn your ACL, MCL, meniscus, or anything?
Never.
Okay.
I've been really healthy prior to the hip issues. I had some neck problems a few different times, once in high school, once in college. But besides that, very minimal on the injury front.
I was going to kind of try to compare. I've had the knee surgery, so I had the trifecta, the ACL, MCL, meniscus. So I was going to try and see how this compared to that. But obviously, this seems to be a lot better. I was out I didn't do things the correct way. I was out 910 days in the middle of my prime.
God.
Yeah, in the middle of your prime when you're winning fights and having fun, and then you tear your knee, and then you're 910 days out. Not a good time.
900 days. That's like 3 years or something.
Yeah, maybe instead of rehab, I came to Thailand to keep trying to build my gym, and so I was like, it's like I'll do it in a hotel room. Sounds easy, just extend the leg. Yeah, didn't do it. Yeah, shouldn't have flown 3 weeks after the surgery either. That was another big one. So I had to have multiple surgeries, and 3 years. That sucked.
Damn. Yeah, the hip thing, it was funny because the rehab was really minimal. It was like, you wake up and you're there for 2 days or whatever, a day after the hospital, and then they're like, okay, here's like these 8 stretches to do. And you're like, okay, that's it, and they're like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this for 6 weeks. And then, and then we have a follow-up call in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you get the follow-up call and they're like, well, hey, do these 2 other exercises. And you're like, that's it? That's really all I got to do? Yeah, that's it. It was freaking wild.
Yeah, I would think in boxing, which is what you're doing now, I would think there'd be a lot less pressure. I mean, obviously you use your hips, you twist and all that. I get it. A lot of punches come from the hip. That's common known. But it's like it seems like it'd be a lot less strenuous than grabbing a man and throwing him all over the place like you've been doing in your MMA career, or your obviously your wrestling career. So I would think it'd be a lot less strain anyway. So that's definitely going to be going in your favor.
Yeah, big time. Like I teach wrestling, so I get on the mat. And I kind of wrestle with some of the middle school kids and high school kids and play around, but I'd be very hesitant to like have someone who's my skill level and try to go against them in wrestling or jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I don't really have any pain in my hip, but yeah, that would make me nervous. Just the fact that I'd have to be in these positions that I literally haven't been in years because my leg didn't bend that way.
Yeah. Well, good for you taking the fight. I can see the ups and the downs of taking a fight, being you're retired, surgery, wrestling base primarily in your career. What factors went into? I mean, I'm not going to try to ask you all the questions you've been asked before. I saw a lot of your interviews, but what factors went into taking the fight aside from the money? Obviously, you're making a lot of money. That goes into a big, that'd be a big factor for me and everybody else. Obviously, aside from that, what were the thoughts in your mind, like the thought process that like excited you about taking this fight and coming back and having this this kind of this next fight, this next moment?
Yeah, I would say it was just like an opportunity that was too good to pass up.
Right.
And I love to compete, and so I always say like I have this big bookshelf right over here, and I always read a lot when I was growing up. And one of the biggest things people struggle to do in athletics is retire at the right time, and so that was like something that was always in my head is like, don't stick around, don't stick around, don't stick around. And when you're young, it's easy to say that and think that and know logically that that's the right decision. But when you retire from fighting, and I'm sure other athletics would be similar. I don't do those, so I don't want to comment, but I'm guessing it's similar. There's just some feelings that you can't get in regular everyday life. It's like, I mean, we'll just say for me and you, the feeling of walking to the cage is not a feeling you get in everyday life. And for me, because I think of competition really positively. Like I love it. Like if I could walk to the cage every day, I'd walk to the cage every day. Now I don't really want to like train and do all the other things that comes along with being a pro fighter. But if I could walk to the cage, I'm in. Count me in, 100%.
Yeah. I can see that.
I mean that's a big part of it, just missing the competition. The money was right, obviously. I don't know why people think he's good. Like I watched him and I'm like, he's not very good at boxing. And that's kind of like that's most of the main reasons.
The crazy thing is for me, like to break it down a little bit, I mean, it doesn't matter if he's good. Okay, so I mean, I get that he might have some technique. A lot of people say he has potential. He has this, that, and the other. But it doesn't matter. His level of experience in combat sports compared to you, especially, is so low. Yeah. He doesn't understand the difference of what you gain from having fights. And I'll get into this a little bit real fast if you give me a second. Chell made a good analogy as far as like he broke the fight down and obviously he thinks he's made a huge mistake in picking you as an opponent and that your level of combat experience is just he shouldn't have taken the fight. So I agree with him on that regard. But a big part of his breakdown was giving credit to Jake Paul for taking the fight against you because he's fighting an MMA fighter who has such big pedigree and you're NCAA champ, you're two-time, you're Olympian. I don't agree with Chell on that regard because I don't think, and I'm going to get your opinion on this, I don't think Jake knows what he's getting himself into. I don't think he understands that mindset that you have and how powerful that is, even if he is technical, even if he's more technical than you, whatever the case, that mindset is a different mindset. And I think a wrestling pedigree is one of the hardest things to come into, not hardest things, but one of the hardest, stringent pedigrees to have coming into MMA. I mean, I came from AK where we got obviously Kane and DC and Koscheck and Fitch and Habib and all these wrestlers. So I've been around wrestlers, even though I'm not a wrestler. But the reason they did so good was that pedigree and that level of your training in wrestling is ridiculous. And I'd say outside of MMA, that's the hardest the hardest thing, even though I don't have experience, I'd say that's the hardest training you can have. And you're an Olympian. And that mindset, that fortitude, that mentality, when you get in there, like what your prediction is, the 7th round, TKO, KO, whatever.
Yeah.
That's why I agree with that so much, because it's like when he gets into deep water, he can't possibly know how he's going to react. He's never had to dig deep.
Can't. It's impossible.
Me included, when I first started out, in your first couple fights, and I don't even think he's had a couple fights. I mean, he fought a YouTuber and he fought a basketball player. He hasn't really had a fight yet. And until you have a fight and then get into trouble where you're in deep water and you have to dig deep, he doesn't understand that's the biggest pain of fighting. It's not getting punched. It's not getting kicked. For me, it's never hurt, those things. It's the digging deep. It's when you're tired, you're exhausted, you're in a dogfight. You don't know if your opponent is fresh or more fresh than you are, and he's going to come at you harder, and you have to dig deep and keep going forward and keep pushing yourself and use your heart. He can't possibly know how much heart he has, how much fortitude he has, and how many guys, even with 2 fights, have you seen be composed and relaxed and comfortable enough to conserve their energy. These guys that I've seen that have such little fights, they're balls of energy, man. They go in there, they got that pressure, they got that adrenaline, they blow their load in 1 round, 2 rounds, which we haven't seen again with him. So I'm agreeing with you 100% on the fact that I think that you can weather this and do good and just beat him up. And I think he's going to realize that the way he knocked out Nate is not the worst way to lose a fight. Just like Conor McGregor just got knocked out. Going out on your shield, I've been knocked out like that. Going out on your shield is not a cowardice way to go. Getting your ass beat by 2 or 3 rounds, that doesn't look so good. What are your thoughts overall on that?
That's way worse.
Absolutely.
I mean, I always tell my kids, I coach wrestling. And did you? I know you didn't wrestle at a high level. Did you wrestle at all ever?
No, just at AKA with these guys trying to take me down and slam me on my head.
Well, so you'll probably understand a little bit at least. It's not quite the same, but the most miserable thing in wrestling, in folk style wrestling, was when you're a bottom and the guy's just grinding your face into the mat. And there's just not a damn thing you could do about it,
Yeah.
And so that mentality you learn from wrestling about how to deal with the adversity. And so we deal with that a lot as kids, right? And that's why I think, to your point, wrestlers do it so well. But yes, some little Disney Channel star who has kind of been pampered, he's not going to know how to deal with it. And actually, Mike, I've been having this bad premonition that he's going to, at a press conference or something, he's just going to feel the energy and he's going to realize he got in too deep and he's going to find a reason not to do it. Because I don't know about you, but especially when I was a little kid, not a little kid, teenager, getting older, and starting to be around some high level wrestlers, there's just this energy where you're like, I don't want to mess with that guy. Like that guy, if I mess with that guy, I'm gonna end up on the wrong side.
What you're talking about.
I know that happened in the college wrestling room to me. And by the time I got to fighting, I was pretty damn good at taking people down, so it didn't happen very frequently. But you probably know that feeling, and I'm worried that he's gonna at some point realize, oh shit, maybe this is not what I want to do.
But here's the thing: he's 100% gonna realize that. The only way he doesn't realize what he actually is in for in this fight is if he comes out and knocks you out in the beginning of this fight. Now let's break that down for a second. What are the chances of him to come out there?
Wait, let me ask you this.
In a 10-ounce glove?
Mike. Let me ask you this first. So I said I never really had that in fighting where I was just kind of overmatched and nervous. But I do remember, and I'm curious if you remember this. It was my 7th fight. I was fighting Lyman Good for the Bellator title, and I had kind of killed everyone in the tournament, and I didn't know idea what I was doing. Right? I was just taking people down and punching them pretty much. And I remember looking at this dude and I remember thinking shit, this guy's gonna try to hurt me. I'm like, I gotta go hurt him. I gotta go hurt this guy before he hurts me, because I can look at this guy and this guy's gonna try to hurt me right now.
I've had a lot of those moments, where it's like, luckily I was a striker and I had that kind of killer instinct and mentality. So, I mean, I would say I'm one of the most aggressive kind of fighters. And you look at my past, you look at my history, you look at my fights, and I still had that feeling, especially coming up in the beginning. Because I didn't know how good of a fighter I was. I didn't know how aggressive I was. I didn't know how my chin was. I didn't know how my heart was until I had to figure it out inside the cage or inside the ring, right? I had to learn as I went. So I pretended, in the beginning that I was tough and I had heart and I was going to kill you and went out there, blah, blah, blah. But I had to learn those things as I went. And I remember sitting back after fights, like, fuck yeah, like I dug deep in that one. I got some heart, or fuck yeah, I got a chin. I got some punches landed on me in that one. And, David Loiseau was a great example, for number one contendership in the UFC. He landed some big shots on me, but like I took them and I felt good about that. And that's deep into my career. That's 5-6 fights into my UFC career. I was still learning, that I had a chin and I could take a shot, or I had this, or my strategy was better. So for him to be so inexperienced, I just don't think he understands that. And for him to think he can, and like I said, the only way he's not going to realize this is if he comes in there and knocks you out fast. And then you break that down. What are the chances of, you see these fights. He's not a great, so he may have potential, but he's not a great technical boxer. He's definitely not experienced. He was winging punches at Nate. Nate was all over the place trying to throw punches back, so his hands were down. And he got that big knockout. But for him to knock you out in a 10-ounce glove, when you've spent your entire career fighting beasts that were having, throwing and hitting you with 4-ounce gloves and not knocking you out, you've never been knocked out with a punch. The chances of him to come in there and to think that, for him to think he can come in there and knock you out in like a round or less than Jorge, whatever the case, it's crazy to me. It's crazy.
The only time I ever got rocked in my career in training and/or fight at a fight, and so obviously it was at the probably the most inopportune time and probably the wildest way someone could get knocked out.
Yeah.
But that was the only time I've been rocked, and so I don't want to say I got a great chin, but it's like, well,
you obviously do.
Right, the time proves that, because I've been in the cage 22 times or 21 times, and I've really only been rocked one time.
And you're talking about the Jorge fight. You've never been rocked before that fight, you're saying?
Never before that, and never in training ever.
And unlike you, I have been knocked out by a punch with a 4-ounce glove. But like, who in the world would not have gotten knocked out by a 100% unprotected bony knee to the face while you're rushing in and he's rushing to you? There's no one that couldn't have got knocked out. And the thing is like, you think Jake Paul realizes that, like Chell was saying, about the level of athleticism you have and fortitude and your pedigree. But, when you hear him talk, he's talking about, Ben, he acknowledges that your age, you're older, you're retired. He acknowledges your injury. He acknowledges, he makes fun of your striking, saying, Google your striking and look at this. Like, he's really downplaying. Like he really believes that aspect more than I think what he's really facing. This podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the official trimmer of the UFC and the official trimmer of the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast, and yours truly. Precision engineered tools for your family jewels, and now you can save 20% by going to manscaped.com, manscaped.com, entering code QUICK. You save 20% and get free shipping. Manscaped has the best below-the-waist grooming products on the market, bar none, by far, and now even better news, they've just released their products across Europe, Canada, and Australia. So if you're in Europe, Canada, Australia, or America, you can use code QUICK at manscaped.com. You get 20% off, free shipping. That lets them know that we sent you. It's a win-win for us. It's a win-win for you. So please go show support and visit our sponsor today, Manscaped. And I was actually surprised. I respect this man a lot, and I know he knows a lot about fighting. And he was obviously the promoter for your show where you're a champion, Scott Coker. I was surprised to hear him say,
no, Scott was never my promoter. It was Bjorn.
But I'm just saying, I was really surprised, as much as Scott knows about fighting, to kind of say what he said. I don't know if he was just taking a jab at you or if that was his real analogy.
Scott and I got in a fight. We got heat, and I don't really. Well,
to say technique is the reason that Jake could beat you, and not realize all the other factors you have and experience and all this stuff. That was kind of weird for me to see someone like that of that level say that.
So Scott, so when I retired from one championship, and they were trying to set up me versus Rory, right? Mm-hmm. And it was just me versus Rory. And I don't recall the exact reason. It didn't work out. Not on my end. I'm good to go. I wanted to fight, right?
Right.
I was on my opportunity to fight the best guys. And so then they did that welterweight tournament. And I was never asked to be a part of the welterweight tournament. Not one time, right? It was just the talk of the me versus Rory. So Scott went on and said something like, oh, yeah, we invited Ben to be in the tournament, but he was scared or, whatever. And it was like, okay, listen, man, if you want to talk shit and say truth, that's fine. But if you're just going to tell straight up lies, that's bullshit. And I called him on it. And ever since then, he's always just had like really bad things to say about me. So anything he says, I kind of ignore it. And then I even said, hey, Bellator's up for sale or something. And he threatened to sue me for sending a mean tweet at him. But I don't think I'm wrong because Bellator hasn't put on a show in about 6 to 8 weeks, and they don't have anything on the schedule. So I don't really think I'm wrong. What do you think? Think they're for sale? You hear anything?
I haven't heard anything, no. I don't know. I don't know. So I guess there was some bad blood there. But I was very surprised to hear his analogy on that just because he should know enough to know that it doesn't come down to technique in this fight only. There's a lot more factors to play. I mean, as much as he has those big Dumbo gloves to hit you with and try and somehow knock you out with, you have the same size gloves to put up and protect yourself, which is hard to get through. You know what I mean? Like you put your hands up and he's not going to knock you out through your gloves. What's he going to do when he punches himself out by hitting your gloves because you got your hands up for a round or two? You know what I mean? Like
that's another one.
Does that cross his mind?
Yeah, Bellator's last fight was December 10th, if you were curious, and they do not have one on the schedule, so they might be for sale.
Back to Bellator.
But they did dog shit ratings last year, if you weren't aware. You probably didn't even get it in Thailand. Bellator. Definitely not available in Asia.
Okay, now I know your feelings toward Bellator.
Bjorn tweeted me or texted me a couple times lately. It was tremendous. But yeah, Coker, thumbs down. Oh man, I got distracted. What were we talking about?
We're just talking about the fact that
him hitting me with the foil.
You can block just as well as he can punch, and those gloves that you have are just as big and cover your face twice as much as a 4-ounce glove.
Sure. No. The other thing that you said actually was that. He's gonna get tired. That's another one where people, like you never know. We said earlier, you don't really know how you're gonna react till you've been in a fight. That's another one. Like if you haven't been that tired, like you don't know how you're gonna react. And that's one where me coaching youth and high school wrestling, I see kids go to the point where they haven't really been before, and it's for most people, it's a panicked experience, right? They get there and they're like, fuck, my legs are gassed. My lungs are burning. I've never been here before. I don't really know what to do. Like, that's another one where...
It's a panic.
And it's panic. And you can kind of simulate and practice a little bit. But you can never simulate the same as a fight or a match. It's just, I don't know why. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, right? I don't know why it's different, but it's freaking different. For sure.
Like for me, it's like if I was in your position, and no offense to you, obviously, you just have a wrestling base, obviously not a boxing base. You have way less boxing experience in your career than most MMA fighters. You are retired, living the good life with your family and your beautiful wife. You're injured, coming off an injury, and then he picks you out of hundreds and hundreds of people he could have fought possibly. Yeah. Are you offended that he's trying to take someone who he thinks he can take at their weakest moment, who has this high level of credentials and try to get a big win on? Does that offend you? Because it seems like he's...
No, I don't get offended very easily. If you think I suck, whatever. Let's get in the ring and settle if you think I suck. I'm great with that. Let's do it.
Yeah. So it doesn't bother you. It doesn't change the fight for you or anything like that.
Oh, I love competition. That's like, I don't know, like if someone says, hey, I'm going to beat you at disc golf. Okay, let's go play. Let's see what's up, Yeah. I love competition.
And you get into the bickering a lot online, but you take it so easy. Like you're an easy go. Yeah, like you fire back, but you're easy going about it. Like he gets all fired up and does crazy stuff and like takes things too far sometimes. He's a little crazy. But you take it real easy. Like you're kind of laid back. You just kind of have fun with it. Like you can tell you're just having fun versus him, it's like his life. This is how he built his career.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think that was one of the things like in MMA that people are going to say crazy shit. And if you let it bug you, that's going to be negative to your performance. So I always just figured like, let it roll off my back. And I know... actually, one of the things I've been thinking, I meant to say this on my own podcast last week. I didn't say it, so I'm going to say it here for the first time.
All right, cool.
Is that Conor without the shit talk is a lot less effective.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look at just the Poirier fight, then the first fight, he got him really upset, right? And Poirier got overextended, tried to fight too hard, and boom, clips him, puts him down. Jose Aldo gets him mad. Aldo rushes in, boom, puts him down. And now in these last couple fights, we've seen like this, I don't know, nicer, happy, more mature. I don't know what you want to call it. It's not the same Conor as we saw 5 years ago. And there's other things that are different as well. But I think Conor without the shit talk is a less effective Conor.
So that relates
What do you think?
No, I agree with you 100%. And I was, it was a hard prediction to make with Poirier versus Conor the second time. But when Conor came in, two things I noticed about Conor, and I'm not trying to dog him in any way, but he was a lot nicer and very fatherly. Yeah, that's nice. But when it comes to fighting, it just seems like that's kind of a bad thing at sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you're the complete opposite before that, and you have such that that aura around you of killer and fear and crazy, and that gets under people's skin. It at least distracts them.
No, it did get under those guys' skin for sure.
And for some reason, he looks really old. He looks like he's gained like 10 years and like just like a year. I don't know what happened there either. So he looks older and he looks way nicer. So I was kind of worried when I saw him come in, and there was so much like mutual respect. I thought he fought okay. I thought he fought fine. I actually thought, technically he was sound in the fight, and maybe even better than Poirier in the first round as far as technically. But then Poirier just does what Poirier does. He put it on the second round, and when he got him, man, he just kept going. It was incredible, and he got a great win. Undeniable.
Were you shocked that Conor didn't check any leg kicks? Because that was pretty shocking to me. He didn't check kicks. He didn't change stances. He didn't really have an answer. And if you think like back to his fight with Nate Diaz, that was essentially, I would say, a major reason why he won that fight was he was so effective with the leg kick. Nate slowed down because of the leg kick, and Nate was less effective. So when Conor didn't really have an answer for the low leg kick, I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah. A lot of people are saying this, and I kind of believe it. I don't think Conor's was training as much as he was before. The hungry Conor, I think trained a little bit different. So I think maybe, he neglected certain things, and probably that was one of them, leg checks. And it seems like this calf kick is the new thing.
It is, isn't it? I was trying to tell people it wasn't around even 5 years ago.
I had this talk with Henry Cejudo, who was on my podcast, and he was affected by it from Demetrius, I believe. And that was the start of kind of like where you could see an effect where it would make the ankle give out and change the footing and footwork a little bit. Like Henry was off a little bit after that. He recovered, but then Chito Vera did it to Suga, and then he didn't recover, and he twisted his ankle moments after the calf kick, and that's when it became a little bit more, I guess, in the spotlight. And then somebody else recently did it as well, and then now finally Dustin with Conor, and then Conor gave it full credit. So it seems like that's going to be. It seems like everyone needs to come to AK Thailand and Phuket and train leg checks. That's what I think.
Low leg kicks weren't a really popular strike in even Muay Thai historically, correct or no?
Yeah, not that low. It's mostly to the thigh. Yeah, you're right.
Isn't it so funny how long fighting can be around? And there's this one seemingly very obvious weapon that everyone is neglecting, and then all of a sudden, people are like, oh shit, that works. How about everyone start? And then all of a sudden, tons of people start doing it.
Yeah, it is weird how this late in the game or this far into the sport, a new move comes out, and then everyone uses it to effectiveness like that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think it's because it gets there faster because obviously it's lower, so less distance to travel. And then obviously the check that most people use is a lot higher check where they're picking the leg up more. And so I think a lot of people are unprepared to deal with that low kick or the low kick. And I think that it's probably not going to take too long before people start finding really effective defenses. I think we're probably 9 months, a year away. And then someone will solve the puzzle of how they stop it. Some type of lower level check. And then it won't become an issue. It'll fade. It goes. Stuff's cyclical.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also when you check kicks, you bring your leg up, and that makes it more susceptible to hit that spot. You know what I mean? So even if you check it can still connect with that calf. You can't hide your calf so much.
Yes, it's hard for sure.
Where does this just going back real fast to the fight? Where does this fight? I know it's kind of one of those things where it's just the right time, and you've done so many big things with the Olympics and wrestling and fighting. Obviously, 2-time champion in MMA, or obviously 2 different divisions and 2 different shows, right?
No, I fought just 170 everywhere.
That's everywhere, okay. And then
so if you remember one championship, they do the strange thing where they do. I shouldn't say strange because I think it's superior, but you piss and you weigh at the same time. So it was 180, it was 185, but they call it welterweight
Right.
still. Um, and I actually think that's for me, that's a more fair way to do the weigh-in, and better for fighters because we don't have to kill ourselves with the waterweight cutting.
Right. Yeah, it is different.
Yeah.
But where does this fight put you as far as like, where does it rate on your level of, is maybe cool factor, maybe, obviously not competition level, but where does this fight rank on your career as far as like getting a win over Jake in a show like this if it does become a big pay-per-view? Obviously, there's a lot of kind of like glitz and glamour. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of star power there. Where does it rank on your list of achievements if you get this win?
Well, I don't think it's a very big achievement. That
Or
being
moments.
said,
Maybe moments was the word I should have used.
yeah, I think moments.
Because it's going to be kind of a cool moment.
Like, yeah, I think it would be a cool moment. I mean, I think, and I don't know that being famous is something that I really want to do, but I think, if I beat up Jake Paul, it'll probably straight out, catapult me into the stratosphere as far as popularity is concerned.
Yeah, for sure.
I cannot believe. So listen, it's not my generation. I'm sure you feel similarly, because I think we're similar aged. I've heard of these guys before, Jake and Logan. I knew they had like a really big following, but I didn't know anything. I knew zero, nothing about them whatsoever. And I haven't dug deep in, but it's like everyone hates these guys. Like it doesn't feel like anyone likes them. Like genuinely, it does not feel like that. And I guess a couple of the comments, I made this video the other day because I was going somewhere with my videographer, and he's like 20, I think he's like 24. He's younger by me than a significant amount. And he kind of knew a few things about him, And so I turned on the camera and I said, hey, John, tell me what you're tell these people what you're telling them. And everyone else, why do you guys hate Jake Paul? Because I don't know why everyone hates him so much. And they pretty much came back and said a lot of things. He just does mean things all the time. He's a bully. He's a dick. Like just a lot of stuff like that. Nothing really positive. So I think everyone's going to get like a lot of satisfaction of watching me beat his butt.
Yeah. And like every MMA fighter, I think every fighter and sports combat athlete is taking offense to the fact that he's trying to dip into our realm and try and take on a fighter with such a low experience, and it's you do have a lot of people on your side, I do believe.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I'm getting like almost too many people who are offering help in some way, shape, or form. A bunch of boxers saying, "Hey, let me come help train you," and all this stuff. So it's kind of cool, but it's funny, and I'm not gonna be able to take everyone up on their offers, but I'm sure I'll be able to take a few of them.
What's your camp going to be like for this? I mean, I'm sure you're just starting it now.
Yeah, so I started training pretty hard, like 2 Fridays ago, maybe, when it was like, hey, we're going to send you the contract when that was starting, and so a lot of it's just been strength and conditioning because after I could actually start doing something with my hip again, I wasn't like doing hard workouts. It was like, hey, I ride the bike for 30 minutes, whatever, like light stuff, So first things first, it was like, okay, let me get back in good shape and get my body going. So I did a whole bunch of strength and conditioning with my coach last week and then kind of setting up my camp. And so I'm going to make one of my old teammates, Biggie Rhodes. He's going to be kind of like my everyday guy. I'm going to work with Duke and Scott Cushman at Rufus a little bit. And then, like I said, I have all these people offering. So I just need to kind of line them up. And I'll probably try a couple in the beginning. And if they're really good and I really like them, then I'll, invite them back again. And if I don't like them or it just doesn't work, then, probably will say, hey, I appreciate the time and it's just not going to work out. So something like that. Obviously, it's, one of those situations where you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't need fucking 10 people's advice.
Right.
Because a lot of times that could be counterproductive. So I'm hoping, ideally, I find someone good early. I also had a boxing coach who I really liked in Arizona. He can't be here all the time. I'll probably bring him in for a week or two. So I had quite a few good people around me who are wanting to help and who have great information and will be able to get me where I want to get to.
Nice. Is it different with this COVID? I mean, obviously, and I wanted to ask you how your training is going to be with the COVID since you haven't had to deal with that yet. And then the fear of getting it, obviously, and the fight getting canceled.
I have no fear of getting it.
No fear of it. And then,
I mean, dude, I've been around. We opened up. I mean, I think Thailand's like really strict.
Yeah,
we've been open in Wisconsin, our wrestling academies. We've been open since June 1st. Now this is June 1st of last year, right? Because we're in January. Right. So that's like 7 months now. No, 8 months. 8 months. And we have 5 academies. We've had 0 cases where it's went from one athlete to the other athlete. Wow. We've had 0 transmission. And our 3 initial academies had record numbers last year. Like, people where I live, they don't really give a shit. It's kind of wild. And then on top of that, it's almost even more wild that, like I said, 0 transmission. I figured it was going to happen, and it was part of what we were going to have to deal with. But we haven't had it happen once, and it's almost mind-blowing. And I've been at big tournaments now. I've probably been at 6 to 8 really, I mean, thousands of people there, tournaments. So no, I'm just not all that concerned for myself about it.
Have they told you about the protocols for this fight? I mean, in kind of advance, like what you're going to have to do? Is it going to be like the quarantines and crazy stuff, go in there early and all that, or?
Yeah, I don't know. They haven't really said that. They haven't even picked a final location, which I'm sure they're going to pick a state that's more open. Like Texas, I've been there, I've been traveled there. They're relatively open. Florida's relatively open. And then obviously there's places like California, which are more closed down. Although very conspicuously timing, California, New York City, Chicago, Detroit, all opened within the last couple of weeks, which is very, very interesting with the timing. But then also in Wisconsin, cases, if you look at the cases, we are going down. Like, I think we peaked at 78,000 active cases, and we're already down to like 19,000. So we're really on this huge downswing. My kids have been in in-person school since the beginning, and there's been she's never, my oldest one, and my youngest 2 go to daycare a couple days a week, or I don't know, it's like preschool, whatever. Right. None of them have had a quarantine or anything. So yeah, I mean, up over here in Wisconsin, we're doing pretty good.
I mean, it's got to be getting weaker. I mean, essentially in time, these viruses get weaker as time goes on. So I mean, it's probably getting a lot weaker now and a lot harder to transmit and definitely less dangerous, I would think.
What's up, everybody? I am here in Thailand. This is the first time I've ever been here. Been dying to come here for years. Mike Swick, he's one of the big reasons he's been trying to pull me down here. What he built down here, AKA Thailand, is incredible. There's people here from all over the world. You can train mixed martial arts here, jiu-jitsu. They have weightlifting, they have cardio, and obviously they have Muay Thai, boxing, everything. I'm telling you guys, I know everybody wants to go to Thailand because Thailand's so cool, but you can't come to Thailand without coming to AKA Thailand. Come on.
Mike, are you guys still shut down?
We're shut down. So the borders are shut down, but we can get people in. But you have to do a 2-week quarantine. So we're getting guests in. We're actually getting a lot more guests in this month, or last month and this month. But they're having to do a 2-week quarantine in Bangkok, and then they have, so we're getting guests that are coming for like 3 months, 6 months, and a year. Versus like if they come for a month, they're not going to do a 2-week quarantine in a hotel and then have 2 weeks in Thailand. But once you're in Thailand, it's like the one good thing I can say is there's no COVID here. So we live kind of normal, and we have a beautiful place. And another great thing is the beaches and the tourist like areas, the most beautiful beaches and locations and stuff. There's no tourists. So there'll never be a time in history when you can actually go to these places and not see tourists except right now. So we're like cruising around. Like I'm posting a video actually right after this podcast. Wow. I basically, I surprised my whole gym and took him to an island for training, and we filmed the whole thing. Nice. We're gonna post this video like right after you actually, but it's like the quality of the sights and the nature is unbelievable. And you can actually come if you didn't have a big fight coming up, obviously. And a lot of people don't have things to do for the next 3 months, 4 months, whatever. They could escape to Thailand, do a 2-week quarantine, and then just enjoy and travel all around Thailand, for a month, 2 months, get some experience and see a Thailand that they'll never see again, without all these crazy tourists everywhere. And it's very cheap too. So that's obviously very good.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, hopefully you guys open back up. I know I went to Singapore and they were super strict, quarantining a room, had to get invitation by whoever was hosting you, that type of thing. And I know I think they're just starting to put fights on again, which is really positive.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Thailand or no?
I have. So I went to, my wife and I went to Phuket.
Oh, cool.
And then we went to what was called Phi Phi Island, I think.
Yep. It's amazing.
Yep, we're out there. So yeah, it was amazing. It was really, really enjoyable. I hope I get to come back at some point, but who knows? I'm a busy man, so I don't know when that's going to be.
Well, after this fight, man, take a vacation. Come back when the quarantine's over. I think they're about to announce a bubble, and then they're going to start opening it up. So I think it's going to be soon. But hey, man, I got a nice place here, and I know the island very well. I can give you guys a great vacation if you want to come, and it's an open invitation to you and your wife and your family.
Are you there permanently? Like, are you like, this is where I'm living for the next 50 years of my life?
I mean, I'm back and forth. Well, not now because the virus had to stay at my business, but I'm primarily living here. Yeah, definitely.
And like, do you see it as something where you'll never come back, or you see it as like, I'll live here for another 10 years, or
judging from the news, from what I'm seeing in America, like it's not like I'm excited to come back. I'm kind of like every day that goes by, I'm kind of like I made a good decision. Like of all the places I could have kind of like retired to, a beautiful island in Thailand is not the worst place that I could have opened up a huge business and been able to make a living doing something that is in a beautiful location, with great people, and then that creates success for other people too as well. That's obviously a gratifying job to have. We get a lot of people in, and it's not a fight gym. We have fighters, and it has a fight area. We do have top fighters like Manel Kape, who's fighting in the next UFC. He's going to be a top 5 fighter. He's fighting a top 5 fighter. But we are an open gym for everybody. So it's like an excursion. It's like it's kind of like what I tried to build was like the Hard Rock Cafe or the Planet Hollywood of gyms, of sports combat gyms. There's never been one of those. So that's it's like a gym resort. And if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. It's hard to explain just if you haven't seen it, but it's like
Tyron went over with you, so I've seen the pictures
multiple times.
He's posted.
It's like a 2-acre compound or 2-acre property. It's almost like a college. It's got multiple buildings, and it's got training facilities across 2 acres in the jungle, mountain view. It's crazy, man. It's pretty cool. So you would definitely enjoy it. Like I said, with your wife and your family. And how's, just real quick, just one last question. Just how's your wife taking to this whole fight and this? Obviously, you've been saying about how she's getting famous from Jake Paul putting her on his Instagram and stuff. But what does she think overall about the fight? Not just about that, but like just overall about you going back in there and fighting again and fighting him and this whole experience.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess she's kind of relatively like easygoing. Like, hey Ben, whatever you want to do, you do. Yeah. I fought in a cage for 10 years. So, at first when I said box, she's like, well, boxing, like you don't box, and I'm like, yeah, but like go through the list of killers I fought with 4-ounce gloves. And they could punch me, kick me, knee me, or elbow me. Yeah. And this guy is a bum, and he could only punch me. And this 10-ounce gloves, like, I don't really see, to me, obviously, those two situations, one is not like the others.
Right.
Yeah. So she's good with it.
That's good. And she seems like a very supportive wife. Very lucky. It's good to have that. Obviously, it helps a lot when you're training.
Yeah. So everything's good. We're happy. She does it. I keep fucking with her and, turning the camera on and interviewing or whatever. She doesn't love that one. But she's dealing with it enough. And it's kind of funny now. For me, it's second nature, I guess, for people to, me pop on Twitter and people tell me I suck or fuck off or, whatever. And so for her, people saying mean things to her on social media for like the first time in her life, she's like, I don't know how you deal with this.
Are you getting like feedback from, like, obviously I know you're getting a lot of support from the MMA community and stuff. Yeah. He has a big following, obviously. Are you getting more positive, more negative, and are you getting more positive from the people that you actually care about? And then does he have like an influence where these army of Jake Paul fans are coming and attacking you and trying to like harass you online?
Yeah, I try not to ever read comments. But my wife was talking about the other day, and they actually seem relatively positive. Um, like I said, it doesn't seem like a lot of people like him, and so no, he doesn't have like this. Who actually has a really aggressive army of fans is like the Diaz brothers. Like,
Yeah.
you say some shit about the Diaz brothers, you will have like hundreds of people on Twitter just trying to tear you apart.
Yeah.
But with him, it does not seem to be that way.
Well, I guess that's a good thing. And last
Yeah.
question about the fight. What I know you said 7th round TKO, KO, whatever. Without being strategic and giving away anything, I don't think you care anyway. To be honest, I think you're just gonna go in there and do what you're gonna do. But what is your exact prediction of how you think this fight's gonna go when the bell rings till the time this thing ends?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, I just don't hit very hard, which is one of the reasons I'm not predicting it to end early. So I think it'll be one of those things where he realizes I'm not very easy to hit. He realizes I'm going to punch him back. Like, Nate Robinson and other jabroni, they didn't really even punch back. They were more like punching bags than anything. And it's going to start getting worse and worse and worse for him when he gets tired, when he gets hurt once, and when those things start to happen. And so, it could be early. If he reacts really negatively to some of those things, it could obviously end earlier, right? I mean, there's a chance that a guy who's never been in a tough situation, he gets tired, he gets hit a couple times, and he says, fuck this, I'm going back to the Disney Channel, and takes a knee, I mean, that could definitely happen. But my thing was more or less just like, yeah, I'm not a prolific boxer. That's fine, right? And I don't hit that hard. That's fine. And I wasn't blessed with fast twitch muscle fibers in any way, shape, or form. And so, but I am going to land punches, and over time they are going to accumulate, and I'm not going to get that tired, and I'm just going to keep hitting you, and I'm going to keep coming forward. And so, 7th round, he's going to say, okay, I've had enough of this shit. And he's going to, bow out in some way, shape, or form, whether it's like staying on a stool, whether it's I hit him and he acts like it's harder than it was, and he just falls over and says, okay, I'm done. Something like that.
Yeah, and just real quick, I'm not an expert on boxing or wrestling footwork, but I would think, in my opinion, wrestling footwork, when you have to, you have to maneuver yourself into somebody's body on body, without them stopping you and then throwing them on their back. I would think that wrestling footwork would be a little bit more difficult to learn and grasp than boxing footwork, and I would think that would also help you in boxing and maneuvering around and doing things. And I don't think he's taking that into consideration as well. I mean, I think you're going to be able to move in ways that he's not going to expect, because he thinks, he thinks it's not boxing. He's looking at punches only, I think. Yeah,
no, I would agree with that. Definitely kind of come at from different angles of attack, for sure.
Okay, so and last thing, I wanted to ask you, because obviously you got a podcast set up there. It looks really nice. I know you're into Bitcoin. What is it that you're going to do when this is over? Obviously, you're going to have some extra money to help you do these things, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What is it that what have you kind of been doing, or what is it that you want to do? I like to ask fighters this question of, like, say 10 years from now as well, you're already retired anyway. What is it that's your passion now, after fighting, after this is over with?
Well, I'm doing all these things. So I actually joked. I'm joking that I'm not actually coming out of retirement. I'm just doing this as a hobby. That feels more right to me than saying I'm coming out of retirement. So I'm doing this as a hobby. But let's see, the proceeds. Well, I'm probably going to buy. So we have 5 academies, and we own 2 of the buildings in which the academies reside.
Nice.
We'll probably buy 1 or 2 more of the buildings. I'm already kind of in the process of hiring another coach, just kind of someone to help us out with certain things, because we are busy, and it's gonna be nice to have kind of an extra set of hands around. And then I'll probably keep investing more and more in Bitcoin. I have a podcast about that. I'm doing. I think we interviewed Chael on the podcast. My podcast partner sets up the interviews, but I think we're interviewing Chael tomorrow.
Yeah. Nice.
So I'll probably just do all the things that I'm already doing, because I kind of am living my regular life, my post-fight life. And, so I don't even really view this as like coming out of my retirement. For me, this is more like literally more like a hobby, or I'm going to train for one fun thing that I'm going to do.
Yeah, I've got to learn more about Bitcoin. Like, me and Javier were just talking about a deal that was done, and it was a deal that went down for like 100 Bitcoins, and it was maybe a couple weeks ago, something like that, and it was like 31,000 per coin. So we're talking, obviously 3.1 million. And then within 24 hours, I'm not kidding you, the Bitcoin was worth like 40,000, almost 41,000. He gained like
very violently.
He gained like $1 million after sell on his value. That's
Michael
crazy.
Saylor bought $450 million of Bitcoin at 11,000, and he bought another $650 million at, I think it was 18 or 19,000. And so, yeah, he's sitting very pretty. He's been many, many, many millions. Yeah, moves violently though. I would recommend it. I'd recommend it to everyone. I think it's the future money for real.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. And listen, man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and taking time out for me. I know you had a huge fight coming up. Been wanting to get you on for a while. It's been great talking to you. I wish you the best of luck in your camp, best of luck in your fight. I'll be rooting for you for sure, and I'll definitely be watching. So thanks for being on.
All right, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.